Get off my porch. That's what came out before I'd even had my coffee. These two guys, acting like their HOA windbreakers gave them any kind of real authority, walking through the morning frost. Straight toward my steps, waving papers like they'd summoned winter itself. I stood there in my boots, watching their breath puff and their hands shake just enough to betray how nervous they were about trying this at sunrise. And yeah, I could have laughed, but it would have been the kind of laugh that means you're a breath away from losing your cool. My old dog already knew. He was on high alert. Tail stiff, head low, not for rabbits this time, but for trouble-wearing badges that glinted like toys in the dawn. One guy, clipboard glued to his chest, reads off something about emergency access and community review, all while the other films me with a phone like he's hoping for a viral moment. I ask, loud and plain, who gave you the keys to my life? They don't answer. Instead, the filmer says they're HOA field agents, here to evaluate my occupancy. I just stare because what law? On whose authority? Clipboard lifts his shield, but it's not blocking common sense. We like things consistent, he says, the words oily and practiced, and suddenly the only thing I want consistent is my coffee temperature. They keep on, listing noise, storage, visual harmony, violations. I look at my stacked wood, my dad's old toolbox, the blue enamel kettle warming on the rail. I ask if my kettle offends their council's aesthetic. He writes a note. The other mutters about me not being a good cultural fit, and I swear the air temperature rises from my neck alone. I step inside, palm the shotgun that's been on the rack my whole life, just so I remember whose porch this is, not because I want to fight, but because I want my voice steady. When I come back out, resting the shotgun on my forearms, nobody moves. I tell them they're on private land, calmly, and that I'm asserting my rights. Suddenly their bravado stutters, radios chirping, eyes darting. The filmer squeaks about calling county. Good, I say. County knows what a real map is. They claim I'm obstructing official business. I ask them to define official. He can't. Now they're posting notices, penalties stacking up on a page taped crooked to my door, a courtesy notice in fat font that threatens more fines than my granddad made in a year. I say courtesy starts with a knock, not a pre-dawn ambush. The guy with the phone narrates that I'm refusing access. I say, I'm the owner, not your resident, not your member. Community unity doesn't mean you get a leash on me. He films my ridge for witnesses, but mostly gets birds and brush. They start talking. Escalation, fines, liens, bringing in contractors. I feel it then, a tightness in my gut, picturing strangers rifling my pantry, touching my dad's old maps. I say, you're free to leave. Or I call the sheriff myself. They smirk, like county law is a TV show they've only seen in reruns. But when I start describing my property boundaries, markers, and county lines, the filmer can't meet my eye. They back toward their SUV, bald tires, decals slapped on like afterthoughts, trying to keep their dignity. But even the wind is mocking them now. The clipboard guy warns me they'll be back with support. I say, bring real badges in daylight. Their SUV coughs twice before rolling down the hill, dust hanging like an unfinished threat. Inside, the cabin feels colder for a minute. But it's the good kind, like a slap that says you're awake. My dog edges out, presses against my leg. I pet his head, reassure him, and maybe myself, that we've done nothing wrong. I call the county line, log the incident, snap pictures of every tape page and typo from my folder, because up here, if trouble comes, you document it. That's how the real stories get told. A little later, I noticed the side trail, footprints, a candy wrapper. They'd tried to sneak around for a better shot at the cabin. I stand there, feeling the heat build behind my eyes, the way it does when somebody crosses a line you didn't even know could be crossed in daylight. Steady, I tell myself. Then I hear another engine, a heavier one. It's them again, this time bringing backup, a white pickup. Orange cones, folding tables, a community unity banner, a megaphone wielded by a woman in a dark blazer with a rehearsed smile and words that sound big but mean nothing. Neighbors gather. Faces wary, phones out. She calls a meeting about neighborhood authority. I stay on the porch, listening for the moment law might actually appear. Instead, the agents start pointing at my stacked wood, my fence, calling violations for the live stream. tossing out code numbers as if reciting spells. The woman in the blazer keeps talking about team and shared values, but never mentions law, never shows a real badge, never once says the word deputy. I raise my phone, tell her I'm documenting this theater on private land. One neighbor finally asks if this is actually a legal order. She sidesteps, thanks him for his support, but gives nothing real. When they roll out a small skid steer, threaten to remove my woodpile, I call county right there, on speaker. The dispatcher knows. My parcel, asks if any of them have sworn credentials. No, I say, just board letterhead. Stay calm, keep recording, she tells me. The woman announces a temporary chain for my gate. An agent lifts a padlock, rattles it. I stare him down until he hesitates. More paperwork, an evacuation order, with a board signature, no judge, no county seal. I read it loud so everyone hears. The blazer says the board acts for harmony. I say, harmony isn't an emergency power. She raises her megaphone like it's a warrant. The skid steer creeps forward, bucket nudging my fence. I recite my property line from memory. The operator falters. A neighbor asks, "Are any of you law enforcement?" The blazer says, "We are community leadership." I say he asked for law. The wind lifts the banner. The skid steer idles. My dog sits like a statue. And then, finally, a siren threads through the pines, cutting through the script. Heads turn. The agents shrink back. The skid steer coughs and goes silent. The woman in the blazer tries to finish her speech, but neighbors are watching the hill. The deputy's SUV slides into view. Real badge, real questions. He asks for paperwork, reads the notices, sees there's no warrant, no seal, just bluster. He tells them their board authority is civil, not criminal, and property seizures require law, not costumes. He walks the boundary with me, logs every scuff, photograph, and false notice. He tells the agent's impersonation is serious, tampering is worse. The woman tries one last time, offers me a compromise. The deputy says, no, she talks about harmony. He says, harmony doesn't chain gates. She says, community fears frontier aesthetics. He says, fear isn't a jurisdiction. The crowd gets quiet. The deputy tells me to keep my cameras rolling, my log up to date, and call if anyone comes back with tools or lock hardware. He writes his name and cell number on my copy. I believe him. That should have been the end, right? But late that night, headlights on the ridge, quiet engines, then figures by the fence, jackets without logos, bolt cutters, a drone with a light, and a cheap laser pointer taped to the front, like some kid's idea of intimidation. I step out with my phone rolling, say, "You have the right to leave before I call the deputy." They back off. Faces caught on my camera, muttering about compliance sweeps. I text the deputy. He tells me to keep the footage. Keep recording. Do not touch anything they left. The message is clear. Performance isn't power. Evidence is. By morning, the whole neighborhood's been spun up. Another banner, another table, another parade. They bring props, straw bales, gas cans, flyers with my name. I narrate every move, call county fire, hand over proof that the hazard was their own stage set. The fire lieutenant sees through it in 5 minutes. He tells them to pack up their circus and free. My road. A courier drops off a letter from an attorney, full of threats, no substance, even cites statutes from another state. I log it, forward it to the deputy. That night, someone tries the fence. Again, leaves a crowbar, a glove, a fuel rag. The deputy arrives, shines his light, collects everything, warns the board's agents off for good. Says they'll face charges if they try another chain or inspection. Finally, a real emergency hearing in town. Judge reads everything. Sees the flyers, the staged hazards, the drone rotor, the fake paperwork. The judge is not impressed. Board's motion. Denied. Protective order issued. No more trespassing, no more shows, no more touch on my gate without a real warrant. County orders them to pay my power credit until damages get sorted. The blazer woman's lawyer looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. Neighbors film her leaving, quiet as a falling leaf. Back home, the supervisor from utilities unlocks the box, restores my power. Shakes my hand. "Keep your cameras," she says, grinning. The lights come up warm and steady. My dog sighs and drinks his water, and I walk the fence, painting the new scrape bright so it doesn't pretend to be old. And in the hush that follows, I get it. It shouldn't take a court, a file folder of photos, or a parade of fake authority just to hold on to what's yours. Neighbors with paper aren't law. Law is only law when you stand your ground. If you made it this far, let me know down in the comments. Where's the line between community and control, and have you ever had to fight just to keep what should have always been yours? Guard your home, trust your gut, and keep the lights burning steady.